Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good with Ryan Bailey. This is your pal Ryan, and this is your Saturday episode. We're doing a recap of this week's Real Housewives of Orange County, season 18, episode 11. We are in the back half of the season. How are you guys feeling about it so far? We got a lot to talk about today, even though today's episode was kind of weird. There was a bunch of interesting little scenes between like two housewives or three housewives, which led up to a group scene, which I thought was really dynamic, but just so bonkers and wackadoodle, to use Emily Simpson's term, that I don't know. Like sometimes I wish it would start with a group scene with everybody and then go into those separate scenes and then end with a group scene. And I hate to use the word uneven, but I've used it before this season with another episode, but it did feel weirdly, I wish I had a better word for uneven, but it was a little uneven, even though there's tons of stuff to talk about. How are you guys doing? Are you good? I hope you're good, man. That Real Housewives of Salt Lake City recap I did, I was already not feeling well, and it just blew my voice out. And I just had like one interview yesterday, but I was able to rest it a little bit. But we're still on shaky ground. So I'm gonna try to go light, but sometimes you get in a flow zone, you get into that flow, and you're not thinking about your health. You're thinking about getting this message to the people. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, if you're listening at home, hey, you're in a weekend. So I hope this weekend is fan flippin-tastic so far, whenever, wherever you're listening to. That Salt Lake recap, though, I was reading some of the YouTube comments, and I don't usually read tons of comments because it gets me in my head. But I will say it was so interesting. I got a bunch of comments about that opening, the Salt Lake City opening, which was so, stylized and directed and scripted. I mean, nobody would argue that. But a lot of people saying, "Oh, I hated that. Oh, I can't." And I'm like, "Wait a sec. Can't we get on the page that's so bad it's good?" To me, it is. I mean, it was so stylized and so ridiculous and over the top that's what made it amazing for me. And I have to remind myself that we all watch these shows in such different ways. And I guess that's the cool thing about it. But sometimes I'm shocked because I'm like, we can't wait, we don't universally love that opening. It was so bonkers and over the top. And to me, that's why I wanted to bathe in it. I thought it was so, do I want to see a whole hour of that? Hell no. But I mean, it's like somebody just with like, I mean, what a cocky opening. What a just full of itself opening, which I just really, really loved. But we have to talk a little bit about ratings. And for those of you who don't know, even though I know you guys are a very, well-read and very smart audience, ratings are what it's all based on, right? Ratings are the metric that they use to sell to advertisers on how many eyes they got on these things. How big of a show is this? And it's gotten so different in the age of streaming, is that, we don't always consume these things on the same night at the same time. And there's so many options to choose from. I mean, Netflix now is so ridiculous. I mean, ridiculous sometimes in the best way, because you don't have like a hit. What determines a hit now is just, can you explode for a certain segment of an audience? You don't have to be loved and watched by everybody, but can you get a small slice, a certain demographic? And Netflix really kind of caters to that. They have literally shows for everybody. I mean, it's a juggernaut what they do over there. And I guess Housewives are a little bit of the same way, but I'm looking at these ratings for this week and for last week's episodes of all of the Bravo shows, and they were woefully low. And like I said, those are just same day viewings, not taking into account DVR, taking into account Peacock, which I'll watch it live usually on Direct TV, and then I'll watch it again and again on Peacock. And usually then those numbers go so much higher, but it's really weird and kind of, I don't want to say disheartening, but there is something that I loved or still love when we're all there watching something at the same time. And sometimes our schedule doesn't permit that. So it is great that we can rely back on like DVRs and all of that stuff. But it saddens me. And I want to think like, man, I feel like I want these shows to be as popular as ever. And then you get these ratings and you're like, what is going on? So this is Salt Lake City premiered. And I thought it was a fantastic episode. Some people didn't agree with me, but I totally did. And then the ratings came out yesterday, and this they got 375,000 viewers and a point 12 in the demo. And the demo is the demographic, which is 18 to 49 years old, which is what advertisers are really trying to get eyeballs on. 18 to 49. So they got a point 12 in the demo, 375,000 viewers. And then you guys, they have this little detail here. It says series low in viewers, not season low, series low. So that means this is the lowest rated Salt Lake City in terms of ratings that this iteration of the Housewives has ever gotten. And that shocks me. It really there's very few things shock me these days, besides my weight fluctuation, is this. Because I thought, man, what? Wait, we're not all excited that Salt Lake is back? And they ended so strong last season. And I know that a lot of people are bummed out that Monica Garcia, myself included, did not come back, even though I think that was just a minor speed bump for this first episode, and they managed to get on with it. And I thought they did it just amazingly. But series low, and I was wondering, what was it? Was it that they announced just like 3 to 4 weeks ago that this was coming back? This was the date instead of the normal 2 to 2.5 month window we get to build excitement. I've been really trying to break it down in my mind. Why that low? Some people wrote me that they didn't even know it was coming back on. And I have to remind myself that not everybody is just plugged in, so plugged in and knows everything all at once. In fact, on Wednesday night, we had so many shows returning. We had the Golden Bachelorette over on ABC. We had a new season of Survivor over on CBS. So there was a lot to choose from that night. But to me, that was wild. So it'll be interesting to see those numbers go up. And then just in comparison, so last week, well, okay, so Dubai has had a really kind of low rated season, and I think there's a lot a lot of things that lead to that. One being that they waited so long in between seasons. The excitement potentially just wasn't there, and they got for the entire season they got an average of 240,000 viewers. So if you say 375 for Salt Lake, you're like, well, that's better than that. But no, because remember, in like the heat of Scandal, we were seeing like 1.2 million like same day viewing. And then let's see here. Below Deck, they got 693,000 viewers this week, which is really solid. Below Deck is always that solid performer. We might not buzz about it as much as these other shows, but man, it performs solidly every flipping time. Now, last week's episode of Real Housewives of Orange County, it got 650,000 viewers, a 0.13 in the demo. And then let's see if we have ratings for last night's OC yet. Do we have last? Oh, yeah, we do. 579,000 viewers. So 71,000 viewers less than we got last week, but it was a 0.16 in the demo, which I'm trying to find. I just read the demo, but we had a 0.13 in the demo. So it got less viewers, but a 3%, like 0.03% higher in the demo. I know this sounds all like gobbledygook and like not very sexy to talk about. Like the rest of the show is just so sexy. When we get into that recap, it's boner zone. You know what I'm talking about? No, but I think these are important things to look at, because it also shows where these advertising dollars, like that, where they pump that money into. Is there an exhaustion level in terms of Housewives and Bravo? I don't want to believe that. I don't feel that. But is there an overall exhaustion level? Because we've been complaining all summer long that there's not been enough good Bravo content. And now we're starting to get it. And guys, we have New York and Potomac right around the bend. And I'm like, damn, is this going to be the winter of our discontent when we've got so much? And I do expect those numbers, like I said, to go higher with DVR and Peacock and all of that stuff. But man, it really, 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 really shocked me. So it's interesting. So OC, obviously now is, ratings wise, is the highest rated Housewives show at this moment on Bravo. But man, that Salt Lake just blew me away. And I then questioned myself. I'm like, wow, did Salt Lake, is it not building the audience that I thought that they've been building? So who knows? Let me know what you guys think about this. It's really, I don't know, very interesting. Um, okay, so this week's episode of OC, I gotta tell you, I know I've gone hard all season on Alexis, but she made a lot of sense this episode. JK. What a wackadoodle. Holy moly. I mean, talk about going too hard in the paint. Talk about like what a way to show us other facets of your life by bringing up the actual court case and crying about it when your boy toy, this Johnny Big Dong Jansen, is the one that is choosing to keep this going. You can't cry about it and also be part of it at the same time. This is not being done to you. You guys are the ones doing it. It is shocking to me. And especially since Shannon wasn't at this last scene because, she was out there, her and Vicky doing the Dos Amigas, the Shannon and Vicky show, which, by the way, to me personally, is way bigger than Adele in my book. Listen, I'm talking Shannon and Vicky at the Sphere in Vegas. I mean, that's where this is headed. So Shannon wasn't even at this function at poor Jen Pedranti has the ladies over for a first little event and it just goes haywire. And also, she's gonna have to sell that place. There's like toxicity now there because Tamara pissed all over the concrete. I mean, what are we doing? Really pissing all over the concrete? I mean, there are almost so many jokes about that it almost kind of like out jokes itself, or I can't even joke about it because it's like I start short circuiting. I'm like, how close were we to a dump? Like at the same time, like Tamara, if she thought it could get a laugh, I'm sure she would have taken a dump on Jen Pedranti's concrete. And also, we still got a couple more episodes left in the season, so she still might. Who knows how insane the season goes? But Alexis is just not doing herself any favors. And it goes to that point that we always talk about being in the scenes and then watching the show after you film the scenes. So in those moments, I almost feel like Alexis has this I have the strength of my love, the strength of the Lord, and he shall not lead me in the wrong direction. So she's all like fire and brimstone and da 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 da, and like so many emotions, like all these different emotions, too many different emotions. And in those moments, you would think she would actually be gentler, more human, more relatable because Shannon Bedore wasn't there. That she would finally be able to be herself since she didn't have to deal with the potential nervousness of being around her boyfriend's ex or her fiance's ex. But no, we saw an even more amped up Alexis, which then led me to believe, man, you really are putting on a performance of a lifetime. You really are trying to do things to turn people against Shannon, even in moments where you don't have to. Like to me, this would be a safe spot. This would be an in between where we don't need to even mention Shannon or John Jay for the night. Just interact with the other ladies. Be an ear to listen to. I mean, relate with these women instead of just the same old song and dance. And then you have the Heather and Emily thing, which Emily, I don't know how many espresso martinis she was in, but she hulked out. I mean, she went to the dark place, but at the same time, I completely understand why she did, and we'll get into that later. And I understand why Heather was confused because Heather's going like, "Hey, listen, I did this event for family equality. Oh my gosh, I should be celebrated. I should be. I mean, I did such a good thing, which is all true. But this also is the other point about these shows is in that moment, Heather, should already know she did this amazing thing. We all said it. I think everybody around her, I think she knows it internally. But when a friend comes to you and says, listen, I have these body image issues. I've had them my entire life. This is how I felt. And she took it so personally. And I think, there was a couple interesting choices of words from Emily that might have made Heather believe that. But Heather was so sensitive on top of Emily being sensitive where it became just this fight that didn't need to be there at all. And if they were true friends instead of co-workers on a reality show, I think we would have had a different conversation because I keep thinking about, I relate to Emily so much, and I've told you my stories so much. I have weight issues. I've had body dysmorphia. I have negative. Every day of my flipping life, it never goes away. But I know the friends that I've been around when I have something like that or I've had it in the past, they've listened. They might not completely understand. They might think I'm a little like, well, that's a little crazy. I don't necessarily see that, but they kind of just listen and encourage me and, but that's the difference in these shows is sometimes like Emily and Gina, you can tell there is a true real friendship that lasts in the off season. And to me, a lot of these other ladies are coworkers. And I'm not saying they don't like each other. I'm not saying they don't consider themselves friends, but they're not friends. The friends that'll do anything for you, the friends that will listen to you talk about the most inane BS. Not that that's what I'm saying Emily is doing, but they'll just listen to you talk about anything. And I think it just shows us sometimes that this, at the end of the day, is still a job instead of real friendships. And if the thesis of these shows are real female friendships, it just makes that foundation really shaky because you're like, oh, well, huh? I mean, it's entertaining because we love mess, we love fights. It was a dynamic ending. I mean, Emily out there cursing like Alexis and like, fuck off. I mean, that's really fun to watch. But in reality, real friends wouldn't kind of do that. And it also makes you re-examine the Tamra Shannon dynamic as well, which is, a real friendship. And Tamra is saying that, listen, I was dealing with Shannon even in the off season, her calling every night, da 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 da. And it seemed like a very real friendship. But even that we're not getting fully explained to us on the show. And what we've come to learn is that you got to show us on the show. It's got to be on the show for it to become canon, for it to become gospel. It can't be on podcasts, no offense to mine or anybody else's. It can't be in the press because that's not going to hit everybody. We have the show that we're supposed to all watch. That's our homework. And that's what we usually base things on. And then we usually find out more details and fill in the blanks later. But at that point, sometimes it's too late. And so it just leaves you questioning these things of like, I really do want to see shows that are real friendships, like people that have known each other for years and people that have known each other for years before the cameras pick up. And now, I mean, the train is so far down the track that at this point, I don't think we can stop it and rejigger everything. But I do hope for future iterations of other Real Housewives cities, it really is focused on actual groups of friends because I feel like you save yourself so much work and you immediately get to the heart of the matter. And listen, I could be wrong. This is just what I've been thinking about this past 4 years of doing this. I know when I've really enjoyed things is when I know that there's real stakes behind it. When I know that they really have to. I mean, I think that's part of why Vanderpump Rules at times has worked so insanely well because they have known each other for so long and knew each other for a good deal of time before cameras even started rolling. I don't know. So that's just my thing. What do you guys think about it? Are you in agreement in that in some way? I was listening to Emily Simpson on Jeff Lewis. She was on today's episode on Friday, and she was talking about like where she's at with everybody. And she says, well, me and Shannon now we text every day and Gina. And I thought that was nice. And she said, Katie, she's still kind of, she doesn't know really how she feels about Katie. She says Katie does really good in talking heads, but she doesn't feel like she does it as good in the scenes. Because remember, they filmed the talking heads after they filmed the scenes. And I think the example was, man, she'll really go after Heather Dubrow in the talking head, but in the scenes, not so much. And I do think there's really great validity to that. Katie's a first season housewife, but also, there is a comfortability factor that I think once you start learning how the housewives game is played, you do get amped up. You do get mad. And that's why those talking heads, you kind of let it rip. And you're being potentially encouraged by producers, production, all of that stuff. And then you're like, yeah, screw Heather, all high and mighty. And that's why I think it's a mistake to get rid of any first season housewife. Don't get rid of them. You got to let them have 2 seasons at least to kind of really lean in and be comfortable with who they are, not just who they are in their actual life, but who they are on camera. So I think in the second season, you're going to see those 2 things meld if it happens. Heather Dubrow was on Watch What Happens Live last night, and you could tell she still does not like Katie. I mean, this paparazzi thing really seemed to get her. And that's the other thing. Like, I always want the shows to prove it to me. Show the show to show me why I potentially should think somebody is dangerous, untrustworthy, that kind of stuff. And to me, I don't think the show has shown yet that Katie is this manipulative liar. I mean, I feel like it's very small examples. I was left confused last week's episode with the Gina thing of her saying that she's using Heather for real estate connections, which still doesn't completely add up in my head. And I don't know. I don't know. But Katie, if you're a villain, lean in. Be that villain. Be like, hell yeah, I said it, and I'm going to say it again. And I did lie, and I'm going to stand like, stand in that light. Stand in that power. Be Lisa Barlow it out. Like, bitch, you want me to be a villain? I'm your villain. I'm your villain. I'm Lisa Barlow. Whew. Okay, those were my opening remarks. Oh my goodness, you guys. Okay, before we get into the actual recap portion of this, let's give you a little pop culture Bravo breakdown of other news stories happening out there in the Bravo and pop culture universe. First off, remember I said Dr. Nicole Martin, I knew she was potentially not coming back to Real Housewives of Miami. They just started filming recently. Well, this week, I meant to talk about this all week and I didn't get to. We finally know that it was her choice not to come back, and we know the reason why. And she made this beautiful Instagram post this week. And she said, taking a moment to shine light on something I've been quietly navigating in my personal life. On March 26th, we proudly welcomed our daughter, baby Genevieve, arriving 5 weeks ahead of schedule and spending almost 2 weeks in the NICU. After this pregnancy, I started to suffer from significant postpartum anxiety, something new that I did not experience with my previous pregnancy. It all started about a week after giving birth when I found myself having an overwhelming sense of worry and fear out of nowhere. It felt like my mind was constantly on high alert, panicked, and worrying endlessly about the health of my baby, myself, and my family. Postpartum anxiety is more common than we hear about, and it's crucial that we talk openly about it. 1 in 5 mothers experience mental health disorders during or after pregnancy, with most issues going unreported and untreated. By sharing our experiences, we can offer each other comfort and strength and remind one another that we're not alone. This is a part of my life that I'm learning to navigate, and it's been an emotional roller coaster. Given where I am right now, I have decided not to return to Real Housewives of Miami. Prioritizing my health and my family is something I need to do at this moment. It's a step towards healing and finding balance, and I hope you can understand and support this choice. Thank you for being part of this journey with me and for creating a space where I feel comfortable sharing these parts of my life. I hope that my openness can help others who might be struggling and encourage us all to support one another through our most challenging times. With love, Nicole. And Andy Cohen commented on this. We have been lucky to have you and will be again if and hopefully when you feel the time is right. And listen, that's I think this is so brave and powerful of her to be so open with it, because this stuff, as with any kind of mental health disorder, postpartum, anything, we've got to be open about these things because we all deal with it. And I remember, we come from a place where sometimes we're conditioned not to, like, hey, be tough, da da da. And we've got to bring this out in the open. We've got to be able to share that with each other so we can get the help that we need. And now a lot of us probably aren't in the place of Dr. Nicole where she doesn't need this show. Her husband, obviously they're very well off, and she's a medical professional herself. So this is so helpful, and I believe will help so many people out there, just by talking about it. That is something that I didn't used to believe. I'm like, oh, we're talking about it. What are but then you realize by talking about it, it really does. It helps things. I found a therapist I really like, and I've been talking with her, and it's something that we go over all the time. Nothing to do with postpartum, but just with the thoughts in our mind. And I was saying, when I'll have conversations with myself in my mind, that 24/7 thing that's going nonstop, it can be pretty dark. And then when you talk about it with a professional or a friend or something, it helps so much just by speaking it out loud, because it almost you get to hear yourself and say, whoa, 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 that sounds really different when I speak it, as opposed to what I'm thinking in my actual head. And I think so many women obviously deal with postpartum depression. There's so many examples, but I think this was such a powerful statement. I'm so sad to not see her on Real Housewives of Miami, because to me, she was one of my reliable narrators. And I love that the door is open for her to return. So that was good. We did get a little bit of an answer on that. Now, over in Vanderpump world, Vanderpump news and the Valley news, Jax Taylor has revealed he has postpartum depression as well. No, 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 no. I'm joking. I'm joking. Listen, this guy has now been out of his rehab mental health facility for a bunch of weeks now. And I feel like sometimes he might be slipping into his old habits, or his old habits really have never gone away. And I think he's one of those people that has been around the game so long, and the way he uses social media, we all use it in this kind of false declarative way of like, look at me, look at how my life is, look how put together I am. Maybe not me personally. And by the way, you guys, I know I'm wearing that one sweater too much in social media posts. It's just that there's only a couple of things that I even feel comfortable with in my body. And that was one of them. And unfortunately, now there's like 8 photographs of me at different events in this fucking sweater. And I get it. We've talked about it. It's on. I now am. I've been told I can't wear it for the next 6 months. I got to go out and shop for some more clothes, which just gives me anxiety, right? But I'm aware. I'm aware. Even though that sweater got a lot of compliments. See, that's it. I wore the sweater the one time. I never get compliments for what I wear ever, and I got compliments for the sweater. And then I was like, oh, I'll just wear the sweater for the rest of my life. And then it turned out I had to be on camera for a couple of things. And you people that pay attention, you really let me have it, which I deservedly so. So I do have to get a stylist or something. It all sounds so silly and ridiculous. Anyways, we all just kind of post things that usually make us look like we're in the best light. And Jax has always done this. That's why he's such an interesting case study, a character study, if you will, because Brittany has now gone on record many times that she doesn't want to share space with this guy. That no, that wasn't me talking to him at the Valley 2 finale. That was another girl, because I don't want to be in, I don't want him in my face right now. And then Jax is posting things on his social media where he's like posting like a casserole of like, thanks, Brittany, I'll do anything for a home cooked meal. Stuff like that kind of leads you to believe, like, wait, are they okay? And then he was at a storage facility and he was pulling out Halloween decorations. He's like, pulling out Halloween decorations for Brittany. Brittany's Halloween decorations, it never ends. It never, being a man and doing man stuff for your woman, it never ends. And I'm like, what is going on here? And the thing is, you would be like, oh, maybe they're faking it for the camera. No, I just think Jax fakes it for his Instagram. I truly believe he was probably just had it like packing up the stuff from the house. And then I don't know, you guys. I obviously care, but I don't know. But it's so weird. You're having to decipher Jax's social media, and then actually Brittany going on, saying like, listen, she said in an interview this week, she said, I have not, the big thing last season of The Valley was like, she can't drink. She can't drink because she gets sick all the time. She got to be a woman, and she got to be a mother and a wife, and she's not doing that when she drinks. I got to watch that Jax imitation on my voice. But Brittany said in an interview, you guys, she said she hasn't been sick once since January. Boom! Oh my God. So maybe she was drinking too much Jax. And then Miss Sheena Shea, guess what, you guys? Her car was stolen last night. She posted on Instagram today that her car that she's had for 15 years, they live in it. She's like, oh, everybody tells me to move to the Valley. I moved to the Valley. My car is stolen right in front of my house. And she said this story. She said, they actually have like this gated, like a security gated thing that they can park behind. But she said the trash cans were there. Brock put up this whole security thing, but there was a spot, and I get it. In LA, it's so hard to find a good parking spot. And like sometimes if you can get that street spot, you're like, oh my God, I can do anything with my life. So that she parked it there. The next morning, somebody busted the window and stole her car. And I was like, is that Jax related? Who knows? And by the way, let's pick up cameras on season 12. Let's do a season about trying to find out who stole Sheena Shea's car. And by the way, what do you think is in there? I bet there's so much cool Sheena stuff, so many good like collectibles and memorabilia. I've got to stop thinking that way. But if anybody listening has Sheena's car, please email me at sobaditsgoodwithryanbailey@gmail.com. I'm willing to pay a very decent price because I think that would be good in my reality show museum as well. I would probably give it back to Sheena, just to be honest with you. But I don't know. Also, in this is why I thought Jax might have stolen it. Did you guys see this last week? This made me laugh way more than it should. This was like dark, and also another clue of, hey, Jax actually wasn't in just a mental health facility. He was in a rehab. Let me pull this up right here. I just put Jack Brock rehab, and then it immediately hits me with a 988 suicide and crisis lifeline. Which, by the way, that's a good that I even 988 is a line, three numbers you can dial if you are going through something. You know, God, I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyways, this is from Reality Blurb. Vanderpump Rules Brock Davies slams Jax Taylor for suggesting he doesn't know him. Says he helped with Cruz when he was in rehab and reveals he's blocked and now deleted post. So somebody commented in one of Jax's posts saying Brock could have put that up in less than 5 minutes. And Jax replied back to this person and said, "Who?" question mark. And Brock, he took offense to that. And Brock screenshotted that, put it in his stories, and wrote, "Considering you have me blocked, Jax, means you know my name." And then underneath that, he wrote, "But a refresher for you. I'm the guy that helped drop off your kid at school while you were in rehab, buddy." And then he then underneath that goes, "And I use the term rehab very loosely," which I don't even know what that little part of it means. But like, "Oh yeah, you do know who I am. I'm the one that picked up your son and took him to school while you were off at your facility," which that is the most cut. I was like, "Ooh," I was like, "Damn." That hurt me, and I have no involvement in this. I was like, "Oh my god, Jack!" But it also Jack's replying stupid things back to people in the comments about like who Brock who. It's like, why are you even doing that? Like, just if you want a clean slate, Jax, you got to give everybody a clean slate in return, and you can't let your ego and your anger. I know we all do that sometimes, but man, clean slate it across the board. You do know who Brock is. Everything should be please and thank you in these moments. Don't go to that dark side. Why am I encouraging Jax? My God. I said I watched the Golden Bachelorette on ABC. You know, Betches has a show, The Bachelor, where they recap it with Jared Freed and Kay Brown and producer Jazz, which is excellent. But I gotta man, I watched I was watching the first 5 minutes of this thing, man. I'm bawling. I'm bawling when Joan tells her story about her loving marriage, and then he died of pancreatic cancer, I believe. And I was like, ah. And then these men come in and they tell their stories. And it just, this is what to me, and I don't know if it's just because I'm older. It's like, to me, this is the stuff I love to, because I love to watch, because it's like I was talking about earlier with with OC, with these women, is that real friendships. There's real stakes, real feelings. We all go on this crazy thing called life for however long we're deemed to be on it, right? And we go through these ups and these downs and these pain and this torture and then the joys. It's this roller coaster of emotions. And sometimes when you're watching hot like 20-year-olds with abs just trying to like grow their Instagram following, it doesn't mean really that much to me. Like Love Island did. Like you get into certain things, but overall you're like, man, life is going to show you some insanity. And then call me when that happens. It's like what I said with Lala on her first book, Give Them Lala. I was like, man, I don't know if I want that book now. I want that book 10 years from now. And she was still with Randall when that book came out. But man, I would love the Lala book now about the Randall stuff, and like have like, that's when you have some history, you have some lines on your face, you got some white in your beard, like that's where I'm like, people get really interesting. And I don't know if I'm saying that just because I am older, but it's just what I've been drawn to. So the Golden Bachelorette, I thought, had a very strong first episode, and then they show the scenes for the whole season. And Gary, last year's Golden Bachelor, he's like, maybe, how do you do, Gary? Maybe, or he sounds like Kermit. Well, maybe the guy isn't here. Maybe the love of your life isn't here. And I'm like, Gary, are you just trying to get into Joan's pants again? Leave her alone, Gary. We don't trust you anymore. Anywho, I enjoyed the first episode, but I was super emotional. And then I just kept thinking about my dad on the goal. I was like, my dad could never be the Golden Bachelor. He would just get, like, I know him. Like, he would like see an open bar. He would like overdrink. He would end up like, he would overdo it. Like, he would just get nervous. I don't, yeah, obviously where I get it. And I was, but I've had so many conversations with my dad lately or this past year, especially, just about the loneliness after you've spent your life with one person. And I'll talk more about this on the Patreon when it's behind a paywall this weekend because I owe an episode. But he's going through it right now, and it's just that loneliness. And you think about that, and some of these men, and Joan, even you talk about that loneliness. Imagine spending your life with somebody for 5 decades, and for that going away, and then think about just habits that you have, not even the person themselves, but just the habit of being around somebody for 5 decades, and then that is gone. It's got to be like kicking a drug. And so that, like, it's so emotional for me to think about, even in terms of my own dad. And I think I put that into the viewing experience of The Golden Bachelorette. So, anyways, that and then Survivor. I watched the first episode of season 47, and I'm not going to reveal who they kicked off at the end. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that's saving it for the weekend. But man, I think Survivor is sometimes a victim of its own legacy, where everybody is so obsessed with the show that comes on the show now, and they have like, oh, I've watched every season, I've studied this and I've studied this, that they're forgetting to just play the game with the best people. And sometimes they're trying to outwit, outlast, outplay, like, way too soon, instead of actually just forming relationships first. And sometimes it's really frustrating to watch as a viewer. That's my own personal take on that. I don't know if you share that, but still, I love Survivor. I love it so, so much, and I'm so excited that it's back. We got a lot of TV to watch this weekend. Obviously, like I said, if you haven't, catch up on The Golden Bachelorette, catch up on Survivor. Then we have The Penguin over on HBO Max. Now, The Penguin is Colin Farrell in some of the best makeup I've ever, no joke, best makeup I've ever seen done on a movie. And now it's a TV show. I believe it's an 8-episode TV show on Max that takes place a week after the events of The Batman with Robert Pattinson. Now, Robert Pattinson isn't in this series. This is a series that's like Sopranos, or it's like the organized crime world of Gotham City. And it has got stellar reviews. Listen, I would love to be watching the first episode right now instead of talking about these OC ladies, but I'll be saving it for this weekend. But it's gotten such good reviews, and so I'm really excited. So that's out there to watch. Maritza recommended this Netflix documentary series that I've got to watch. I think it's called Into the Fire, that just came out a couple of days ago. So there's that. You got to watch Secret Lives of Mormon Wives if you haven't watched that already. And Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, of course. And then I watched this great docuseries this week, 2-part docuseries on Max called Wise Guy. And it's about David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos. And he is just a fascinating creator of this show. And it really delves into The Sopranos, the creation of it, which to me is a watershed moment in prestige television and made HBO what it is today, or Max, whatever we're flipping calling it this week. It really made it where you could also, where HBO became that place for just amazing shows, but also one of the first shows where you rooted for an anti-hero. You rooted for a bad man, because Tony Soprano, we loved him, but we also saw him do horrific things. We saw him kill people. We saw him cheat. We saw him lie. We saw every sin in the book. We saw this man do, but you still rooted for him. And of course, it goes into James Gandolfini, one of the best actors out there that unfortunately went way too soon. Do you guys have time? Well, I know I hear Sandra going, "Don't go too long." But listen, we're here. I know at this point you're here. We're here. We can talk. And if you don't, I'll put the timestamp where it's Orange County starts, and we can go there. But James Gandolfini, he used to come into the acting studio I worked with. This is after The Sopranos, and he was working on a movie. I think it was with Steve Carell. He was playing a magician. I'm forgetting the name of the movie, but it was a comedy. And my old boss was really good at comedy. And so he came in, and I just remember um, fucking James Gandolfini, and he was like this bear of a man. And I remember he was like, "You got anything to eat here?" Like, and we had to give him an apple because that's all we had. We gave him an apple, and I remember him going upstairs to meet with my boss, and just being like in awe of his presence. I'm like there, and he doesn't speak like Tony Soprano. He doesn't see like, he just is has a normal accent. And I was just in awe of this guy. And then he came in and talked to one of our classes, and it was just amazing him talking about his work process, where he put so much work, because he talked about the importance of being number one on the call sheet. And how they do it with any kind of production is that they give out these call sheets for the cast and crew the night before for the next day. And the lead actor in the series, number one. So you're like, you're the number one on the call sheet. And James Gandolfini led that The Sopranos, and it was first time leading a show. And so he wanted to lead by example. So you would film like 16-hour days, he would say. And then, he would have to come back the next day, and you would only, I think the SAG rule, Screen Actors Guild, is you have to have a 12-hour downtime. So you'd get 12 hours, but in that 12 hours, you'd have to learn 8 more pages of dialogue. So he would have his assistant just run lines with him all night long. And he would go, like you're getting like 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And he would put that into his performance. But there was such an insane amount of pressure to keep up that quality and to make sure that the crew was happy and to make sure, I mean, he talked all about this, and it was such a fascinating thing. And there were so many times where he just wanted to quit, where he's like, this is too much. This is too much. They actually go into this in the docu series I watched, but he talked about it then too, that it was such this enormous pressure, but also because you wanted to keep up the quality of David Chase's writing, of the directing, that they were doing something really special that has now stood the test of time. We still go back and watch The Sopranos. We still talk about it. And that ushered in anti-heroes like Walter White from Breaking Bad, or Tamara from Real Housewives of Orange County. Like it's stuff. I geek out on this stuff, but I recommend that docu-series if you were a fan of the Sopranos or of storytelling. Great docu-series. There is probably 30 other TV things that I'm not telling you to watch that you should watch, but that is what has been on my list so far. Oh, you got to watch this show on Netflix that comes out next Thursday, I believe. It's called Nobody Wants This, with Adam Brody and Adam Brody, and where is it? I just posted it. Oh, Adam Brody and Kristen Bell. And it is created by Aaron Foster, which, by the way, David Foster's daughter, and Sarah Foster, the sister. She's a producer on it. 10 episodes. I watched it all this week because I interviewed them, and all 10 episodes, it was fantastic. So funny, but actually not cynical. Just really, really good. I think you guys are going to love this series. So that comes out next Friday on Netflix. So make sure you add that to your watch list. And then I'm just checking my list real quick, you guys. Into the Fire, Mormon Wives. I still want to watch Born Evil, which is on Max. Still got to finish Chimp Crazy, the docu series. And okay, I think that's it.